I've always had a keen interest in spiritual and philosophical issues. That's why I started studying psychology, and it ultimately brought me to Darwinian thinking and evolutionary psychology. As explained in earlier episodes, there's no sharp division between old religious texts and modern thinking on human behavior, social systems, and the way we should behave in the best interest of ourselves, our family, group, nation, and ultimately the world. The Bible as an ancient textbook on psychology, so to say. I read the Bible, the Quran, and the Bhagavad Gita, and they all made a profound impact on me. And as strange as it may sound, they made me even stronger in my atheist conviction. The idea of a godlike spooky wizard, a man with a big beard, living on the clouds in the sky, always struck me as nonsensical. And reading these old texts, I soon saw their connection with evolutionary thinking, making it possible to integrate ancient wisdom with modern science. And I learned to understand the issue of anthropomorphic gods, plaguing religions once they get institutionalized. It seems to me like a virus. Once a religion is contaminated with it, it's almost impossible to cure it. I'll come back to the question why these simple to understand truths in religious texts have become so obscure and incomprehensible. To give a hint, it has all to do with power. In this episode of Evolutionary Psychology, I want to share with you my personal thoughts on the Bhagavad Gita. I use a Dutch translation of the Bhagavad Gita printed in 1990 by the Theosophical Society. For I know many translations are available, sometimes differing in some details and the ways words and phrases are translated. The Bhagavad Gita is one big epic poem. It starts at a battlefield, just before hell breaks loose. The main character, Arunya, has to battle an enemy army consisting of old friends, relatives and extended family members, people he feels closely connected to. So he hesitates, knowing the battle will end in bloodshed, in the killing of lots of his kin, be it of his own army or the one of the opponents. Then Krishna, God, comes in, and in a number of majestic personal speeches, taking place in a split second, he explains to Arunya the essence of being, the dynamics of the world and the role of him and every other human being in it. During these talks, we meet the whole of ancient Indian wisdom and philosophy, the fundamentals of Hinduism, Buddhism and related worldviews. Then about 100 pages of unimaginable tightly packed information follows. I will try to convey some of the essence to you, as best as I can. The first message Arunya receives is this: he has to fight, whether he wants it or not. Being a member of the warrior caste, it is his duty to fulfill the roles given to this segment of society. What is depicted here is the world and society as an organic system with many subsystems, each performing a specific function. James Lovelock called this Gaia. The evolution of the system goes beyond the understanding of every tiny ignorant human individual. God is too complex to fully understand, as we have read in the Bible in the book of Job 2. So it's not up to your momentarily impulses, personal thought, preference and emotions to decide whether to act or not. You're simply too small for that, physically, emotionally and especially intellectually. So fulfill the role genetic and mimetic evolution has shaped for you. That is the only way the bigger system can be maintained and you on an individual level can find something like happiness and a sense of meaningfulness. This idea is reflected in the Western concept of conservatism. Having sometimes a quite negative connotation, it just means existing systems, especially the older ones and the ones found all over the world, have proven their worth. They survived many storms, and as anti-fragility thinking predicts, this grows them stronger. One could say the ones not functioning properly are already weeded out. Old systems really have proven themselves. Something new still has to show its validity. So do not overhastily replace old systems for temporary fashions, fads and shallow, short-lived delusions. As an evolution, the old systems are the most robust. So give them the respect they deserve. And I know this is hard in a society that has made the new almost to a deity, its idol. Then, in a number of talks, Krishna explains how to become someone striving for oneness. That is, someone who sees the world as it is, as a unity, one integrated system of which he and everything else is a part of. Other spiritual traditions call reaching this vision the kingdom of heaven, enlightenment, or holiness. There are a number of ways to achieve this, as Krishna explains. One of them is through knowledge, truth, or as the evangelist John would say, the Logos. In the Bhagavad Gita explains, by your emotions and wanting things grows inclination. Inclination leads to desire, and this causes anger and wrath, being the direct path to digression and confusion. And that destroying the pure reasoning, the Logos, and destruction of the Logos is destruction of you and ultimately of everything. So stand unmoved between the things. Observe them, but do not let them take you away with them. Emotions obscure the mind. They are like winds taking a ship adrift. So detach, disengage from things. Don't let yourself be overwhelmed by your emotions, impulses and desires. Take pleasure and pain, winning and losing, gold and stone as facts of life, not things that should move you in any way. You are above that. Only this way the Logos can fully materialize itself in you. And only by doing this you can really serve God, that is, the world. This idea was already known by Greek Stoic philosophers, but has more recently come to the West in what we now call mindfulness. This is a meditative practice of which a lot of scientific research shows it has many positive effects on our physical and mental well-being. I was first introduced to this idea by the readings of Eckhart Tolle. One of his core concepts is there's only one reality, the present moment. Everything else are ideas in your head. Ideas about the past, memories and emotions attached to it like remorse, guilt, pride or anger, and ideas about the future, hopes, desires and fears. But these ideas are in the present too, because the now is the only reality. Normally, however, we tend to identify with these ideas about the past and future too strongly. Even so, we become one with this cluster of neurotic ideas about what has happened and what is probably going to happen. Tolle encourages us to see them for what they are, ideas, no more than that. So step out of this river of turmoil, consisting of wild splashing ideas and emotions. Don't be tossed around by it, but step out of it and just observe it, without forming new ideas about this, like, what have I been stupid not to free myself before? Or, see how wonderful I am, becoming enlightened while other people are still wandering in the dark. The Bhagavad Gita explicitly warns for these same kinds of misdeeds. For the last decades, cognitive therapy has been dominant in counseling, coaching and personal psychotherapy. This method, founded by people like Albert Ellis, starts with the premise it's not external events that upset and make us suffer, but our perceptions and ideas about them. So we have helpful beliefs, ideas in our mind, as well as unhelpful ones. Ellis calls them irrational beliefs. Counseling is based on the idea, together with your counselor, you can identify these beliefs and consequently attack them, make them disappear or displace them by more healthy and effective ideas. For a lot of people, this method works out fine, but it takes a lot of effort and energy to battle mental habits shaped over sometimes many decades throughout your life and having anchored themselves with other ideas and having become part of your identity and worldview. That's why, in a substantial number of cases, cognitive therapy simply doesn't work. A recent innovation in cognitive therapy is ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, and its ideas come very close to what the Bhagavad Gita is teaching us. ACT says, don't try to battle wrong or unhelpful ideas, because battling them is providing them with extra energy, which makes them grow and makes them stronger and more harmful. You probably experience this in your own life, for example, in situations when you are hurt by a person very close to you. You can ruminate about it for hours on end, but this will not make you more happy. You feel the demon in your head and it grows stronger and comes back with more vigor to trouble you. ACT, on the other hand, tells you to identify this demon, give it a name, Create a visible form of it in your head, so you can quickly identify it when it appears, but leave it alone from then on. Just observe it. Don't be sad, angry or depressed by it. Don't be afraid of it and don't fight it, because both modes feed it with new energy. Just look at it in an accepting but detached way. Become an outsider. This way you stop making it stronger. It won't disappear right away, but you will notice it grows weaker, and in the end it dissolves in the background of your consciousness. But warning, don't push it that way, because that again makes it stronger and makes it move the opposite direction you want it to. A second way, according to the Bhagavad Gita, to contribute to the world, to serve God, the oneness of everything, is by work. Work is very broadly defined as all activities, so not only labor in the strictest sense of the word. Without work, the world would cease to exist. Humans work, but also do plants, animals and all living systems. If plants would stop their activities, all animals and all beings higher in the food chain would perish. Therefore, do your work. Just like Arunya on the battlefield, who at first sight thought he had to do something destructive. But the strong message of Krishna is, don't assume you know better than evolution, biological, mental and cultural systems with a much more impressive history than you wear on your belt. Don't assume you know better than God. Work, just that. Don't long for the fruits of it. No, just do your work. In the Gospel of Thomas, we read that we receive from the angels and the prophets, and we in return give them the fruits of our work back to them. That is, to the bigger system. The Bhagavad Gita even very explicitly states, he who only receives but gives nothing back is a thief. The world only continues if everyone does his work, meaning contributing to the bigger system according to the roles that were meant for him. Your work can be your intellectual legacy, but also your contribution to daily life, as humble as it may seem. Without it, the world would stop. Many times I have been born, Krishna asserts. Whenever the law is neglected, Krishna sends himself out. How must we understand this line in the Bhagavad Gita? For a better grip, we seek help in the Old Testament. After the flood, Yahweh makes a covenant with Noah and his descendants, but also with the animals and all other living things. So it's not a treaty like businessmen or nations agree among one another. The best explanation is to see the law of life as a guiding principle, an essential piece of advice, and that is, you will only sustain, thrive and survive if you act according to the laws of nature and adapt yourself to the structure of being. When you follow the Logos, as in the Gospel of John is explained, this gives the biggest chance things go well for you. So you can trust in God, fear Him, knowing straying away is a big danger, and following means you meet the benevolence of being. Remember, knock and the door will be opened, ask and you shall be given. Animals follow the laws of nature by instinct. Humans can divert from it, so for us it's a conscious act. When things go wrong, be it in your life, your community, your country or the entire world, people get worried and some are called to action. They take the lead in seeking change. In the Old Testament, these men are called prophets, and they appear whenever the Jewish people stray away from the law, that is, the Logos and the actions the structure of being calls for. For one, Jesus is such a prophet. In him, the Logos and the love for the world is materialized, incarnated you could say, to the highest degree. So he is called the Son of God or even God himself. When Krishna is sent out, it manifests itself in a concrete person. Mind you, this is not something spooky or metaphysical, see it just for the simple thing it is. The Bhagavad Gita talks of the many births of Krishna, as well of Arunyas. On an individual level, this means in your life you go through a number of transitions, stages of growth, moments in your life you really change your views, attitudes and positions in life. In the New Testament, this is depicted as you have to be reborn to enter the kingdom of heaven, meaning leaving the old habits and ways of thinking and adopting new ones, better ones. When Nicodemus asked Jesus if being reborn means he has to return to his mother's womb, Jesus explains being reborn is of a spiritual nature and not of a physical one. Alas, in some institutionalized Hindu belief systems, this important aspect is neglected, and priests have made people believe it's about being reborn physically in another body, which is of course impossible seen from a scientific point of view. The same we see in Christianity, where heaven is projected on some mystical afterlife, while the Bible is clear it refers to a mental, cultural and institutionalized state here on earth. When religious ideas get institutionalized, they become instruments of power, not by some tricksy plan, but by a slow process of mimetic evolution, in which people in power, in conjunction with the priest class, discover they get much more power and control over people when they fabricate a belief system in which the masses are kept ignorant and are made to believe the priests have access to some very important information they don't have access to. The same trick was played by Freud, pretending to know things about our unconsciousness, or Robin DiAngelo, pretending to know of all kinds of racist slack in our unconsciousness. She calls implicit bias. So be aware if someone pulls in unconsciousness, like unconscious bias, to impress you, make you feel small, or make you do things of which you do not grasp the essence. It's often, and we might even say in most cases, a kind of fraud. But, you might argue, it is possible other people have knowledge you don't understand, like for example quantum physics. Meaning you do not understand it doesn't make it untrue, does it? That's right, but here Karl Popper pops in. This philosopher of science says, even if you do not understand a theory, but its predictions turn out to be right, a number of times, big chance the theory is valid anyhow. And what do institutionalized religions do? They make their claim unfalsifiable. They do not make concrete predictions, or their predictions fail, like Jehovah's Witnesses foreseeing the end of the world, or they project them in a time and space we cannot observe whether they are true or not, like in a metaphysical afterlife, for example. So, just like with Freud and DiAngelo, don't believe gurus or priests that make claims that can never be tested. Back to the Bhagavad Gita. The next way holiness can be reached is by giving up attachment. The senses and emotions are among the material things. The self is above this. The self is the part in you that just observes, but refrains itself from emotions like regret, pride, anger, lust or wrath, and thoughts, judgments, beliefs and dogmatic opinions. In the fourth talk of Krishna, this is depicted as the body doing the work and the self just observing this. It works but doesn't long for the fruits of its work. Work is just an offering to the world, to God, to being. Except you are a termite in a termite colony, and that the colony is of more importance than every single termite. And don't be miserable about this. Accept it and know every individual has to fulfill his duties and his roles. Place God, the termite hill, in the center and not yourself. A curse almost omnipresent in the modern Western world. When viewed from a purely scientific or neurobiological perspective, detaching from your emotions would make you motionless. Remember, emotion comes from the word to move. So stop feeling emotions would mean stopping with your work. But that would be detrimental for the world, we already concluded. So don't follow your emotions, but act nevertheless, according to the structure of forces that have shaped our world and our lives. Arunya, as a member of the warrior class, he has to fight, no matter all the doubts he feels about this. Not working is not an option. For many people immersed in institutionalized religions, praying is a kind of begging. Please make my team win the match. Please let me pass my exams. Please make my sick child better. It will be clear by now these kinds of childish behavior doesn't work. Of course the Bible says, ask and you shall be given. But this is not meant at such a concrete level as my favorite football team winning the match. It's about having faith in the structure of being, and that by understanding it you can flourish in it and contribute to it. Think of the manna the Jewish people found in the desert. Probably it was already been there, but only when they ran out of other food they discovered the nourishing qualities of it. The world is full of solutions for problems we don't even know they exist. God gives in abundance. For Krishna, everything is the same. None of the creatures are cherished nor hated by him. He is being, not being, past, present and future, life and death. So don't project all kinds of anthropomorphic features on the highest. Remember the story of Job, when his friends pretended to be able to analyze why God has acted in a certain way. In the end, they all are obliterated, and it becomes clear reality, being, is always too big, too complicated, too multifaceted to be fully understood by us. God is the Spirit, the Logos and the Father, and all of being. The Bhagavad Gita explicitly states other religions, as far as they are focused on this essence, and are not inferior to the worshippers of Krishna. As the Bible says, Yahweh is the Alpha and the Omega. Everything is in God. God is everything. The same goes for Krishna. He is the wind and the rain, the sun and the moon. He is the angels and the demons, the fire god and the senses, the emotions and rationality. He says he is the beginning, the middle and the end. He is life and death. Note, the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita are saying exactly the same things. A clear case of convergent evolution. People contemplating about the essence of reality will always end at the very same point and describe this in scriptures that will in the end become holy scriptures. Christian tradition speaks of humans consisting of three parts: body, soul and spirit. The body is the physical part, the soul our emotions, and the spirit is the part of the Logos that is incarnated in you and the fruits of working with it. Spirit and soul are in a way immortal. The intellectual fruits of your thinking and working can be transferred to other people, as can be, for example, your enthusiasm for something, that is your soul. So they live on after your body has died. The same scheme we meet in the Bhagavad Gita. Here they are called the light, the motivational and the propelling part, and the rigid or material part. The light part longs for wisdom and happiness. The propelling part is the source of passions and longings, but also of attachment. The rigid part is slow, lazy, tired, neglectful, and it arrests the body. It stifles and suffocates wisdom. So, which part in you is ruling? Which part has the upper hand? When the self transcends these parts, it becomes immortal, not as a biological body living for eternity, but then the spirits serve the ultimate being and the individual body plays no part anymore. The ant realizing he is just a disposable part of the anthill, and he has peace with this. When the self sees the parts are working, and when pain and joy, blame and praise, a rock and a piece of gold are the same to him, then he has entered the oneness, so the Bhagavad Gita says. The kingdom of heaven, as Jesus would say. On the other hand, the gate of hell also consists of three parts: desire, wrath and greed. I hope this episode gave you some insight in the Bhagavad Gita, one of the most important scriptures in all of humanity. Just like other traditions, it fell prey to destructive forces of institutionalization. I hope this episode, in combination with what I earlier told on religion, inspires you to have a fresh outlook on these old works of human brilliance. Thanks for watching, goodbye, see you on my next video.